Join me November 1st, 2010 as I visit one of my favorite places in the world, Vortex Springs in Ponce de Leon, Florida. Located off of Interstate 10 between Defuniak Springs and Marianna, Florida, Vortex Springs has been dived as a commercial dive resort since 1972. In the near vicinity is Morrison Springs, which is also a commercial dive site, and farther to the east in Marianna is Jackson Blue Springs, which can only be dived in the fall, winter, and spring by certified cave divers who present their credentials. Vortex Springs is one of the greatest training grounds for diving in the country. In the 1990s, I came here with my children for open water diving in our wetsuits. In 1997 or 98, my son got his cave diving certification here. I also learned to dry suit dive at Vortex Springs. We also used to bring our kayaks and practice rolling in the constant 68-degree temperature water here. I arrived at night and camped in my truck. There's a lot of camping space, and there are lodges, there are rooms to rent, and there are big dormitory type rooms that are usually used by dive shops. There's a full-time dive shop, and it's well outfitted, and I would say it's much better outfitted for technical diving than your standard dive shop. They rent wetsuits, cylinders, nitrox cylinders. They do air fills. I have bought some relatively hard to find parts there for regulators and BCs, and they seem to be very helpful. One of the dry suits that I brought on this trip was a back zip across the shoulders one, and they were very nice to zip up my dry suit for me before some of my dives. This was a Monday night, and they had a large celebration on Sunday and Saturday with a large band and a large turnout. There were a lot of people cleaning up, but there was just one group diving, as well as the commercial divers who were removing hydrilla and doing some general maintenance. They had installed a new stair, which you can see me going down here. To keep from stirring up silt, you usually float out to this ball out in the middle of the 200-foot basin and then descend. The first place that you come to is a concrete pad, which is a good place to leave any drop weights or decompression cylinders, whatever, and come down and get your buoyancy. This area does have a little bit of silt, and you want to get your buoyancy very well before you move off into the sand and rubble. You immediately see two large artificial caves that they have built, and the one to the left is much shorter and is straight without any side passages. You can see me go into the left end to go into these caves. These all were built by the Dockeries who established Vortex Springs before 1972, cleaning out a lot of debris from a large sinkhole, building a dam in the runoff creek so that the level could be changed and controlled to prevent brackish water from coming in at different times of the year. And they did a very good job with these little artificial caves, making them interesting. I've seen a few sharp edges, but I've never heard of anybody getting cut, but I do wear gloves if I'm going to be touching these. There's a little diving bell that you can see between the two artificial caves where you can come up and talk with your friends, but I usually prefer to breathe my own scuba air when I'm in a dive bell and not breathe the stale air. I'm looking down through a little hole in the top of the right artificial cave here. You can see the little square dive bell in the picture, and at the top of the picture now is the opening of the basin, which drops down to a nice rubble bottom about 45 feet. There's more flow down in the basin, and it's unusual to get very much change in visibility down there. There is a line that drops straight down. If you like to use it both for an ascent or a descent, at the bottom of this little basin or this depression, there's enough flow to keep the debris from blocking visibility. 28 million gallons of water flows out of a cave at the bottom that goes off to the right in the pictures that you'll see, just next to a Grim Reaper sign, as is common for most of the Florida caves. No special certification is needed to go down into this first depression area, and there are a few little tunnels that you can swim through. I particularly like to practice my reel maneuvers through these little tunnels and through these little chimneys. Just to the right of that little sign was the entrance to the cave. When you come back up, you try not to stir up any silt, and you can see the ladders or steps to get back out. This new metal one was the preferred one to go down this particular visit. I had always used the wooden ones, but found that they were slippery and they are to be repaired very soon. I particularly like this little basin for dry suit training because there's an area that has a ceiling over it. When you start doing dry suit training, you always get some air in your feet of your dry suit, and it gets you turned upside down, and you should start your training in an area where there's a little bit of a ceiling. I'm doing a few little barrel rolls here, or loops I should say, just to show you what this little depression is like. It sort of bottoms out at about 45 feet, goes down. The Dockeries founded Vortex Springs as a commercial diving site sometime around 1972. It was a lot of work, and he's very engineering oriented, having invented the vortex filter. They did a lot of welding, and he built this nice house that you could see in the picture that is still their house. At one time, I was told that he had 5 Dodge Vipers there. One of the things we like to do at Vortex Springs is practice our lift bag technique. In this picture you can see the divers going down into the little basin area. Here's my son Trey Barrow during his training, looking at some fish. You can see what appear to be eels down there, but they're really fish. You can see little crawfish, actually very large crawfish looking in. The cave itself has a large plastic pipe going down it that you can follow. It has very beautiful sand dunes to see, pretty sandstone walls with a lot of fossils, and several small side passages. About 60 feet in, there's a beautiful side passage on the right side that doesn't go very far and doesn't have much silt. And about twice that far in, there's one on the left that has a lot of silt that we practice going into with our good technique, using our reels and turning around and coming back. The passage isn't very long, it is no more than 10 or 15 yards long. There's some beautiful features farther down at about 80 feet where most of these pictures were taken, and some little narrow areas. It's interesting that sometimes the sand dunes do change, but they're always very beautiful. A lot of air collects in the top of Vortex Springs in certain pockets, and it's been felt to be one of the reasons that there have been so many scuba diving deaths in this area. Prior to 1982, there had been 20 deaths recorded at Vortex Springs. Indeed, when my family was in their training in 1988, the other dive shop in our area, the owner and his dive master both drowned during a class. You go down this cavern area. It's not really technically a cavern, but they call it a cavern at Vortex Springs because the open water divers do go down into it. And you get to about 110 feet, seeing all these pretty sand dunes and some of these formations, and eventually you get to a gate made out of steel. Some people have actually gotten around the gate, and it's caused their death. If you have proper certification, you can get the key to a chain that locks the gate closed. When I go through this, or my son goes through this gate, we always chain the gate open so nobody can close it behind us. There's a picture of my son Trey above the gate, those fish that look like eels that we like to see. And these are the features getting down very close to the gate. So here's the picture of the gate with the actual swinging opening of the gate to the right. This is what's below the gate. It's absolutely beautiful, and is only vertical type passages that we see. Down at about 125 feet, it flattens out and is a side mount passage. I've probably gone 700 or 800 feet back there, and there's nothing interesting. It gets down to about 150 feet. In the area, you can do open water diving in Destin, and I suggest you go dive with Scuba Tech. You can go to Fort Walton to the Armament Museum. Here's a picture of my friend Angelo Thanasopoulos and myself when we explored beyond the gate. If you come to the area, there is a motel, the Royal Inn, and it's very cheap. There's another motel in the area. There's a restaurant, as the pictures show. Actually, 2 restaurants. I'm oriented toward Vortex Springs, and I like the steakhouse there. The camping is excellent in the area. It's a very nice southern climate. There's an upper pool that they've built to help control the water levels and as a reservoir. It's just a very, very pleasant area to come or to bring a group for training or for vacationing. It's about 45-minute drive to Fort Walton, and most of our visits we've stayed at the Best Western in Vortex Springs just off of Interstate 10, although I have been camping there recently. The steakhouse across the interstate from the Best Western is highly recommended, but you can go into Destin with about a 45-minute drive. One July the 4th, Trey and I were coming out of the cave right at dusk. The moon was out and was just up above a big tree, and from the opening of the cave into the little bowl down below, you could see the tree perfectly well because the water was perfectly still, and you could see the moon just perfect. As we were lying there watching, all of a sudden we saw fireworks going off up above, and you could see the individual fireworks. The water was so clear, even down at 58-60 feet at the entrance of the cave. I can't wait to go back to Vortex Springs. Some interesting history. The Dockeries that built Vortex Springs and live in the big mansion designed the first dive flag, and Mr. Dockery is credited with discovering that scuba tanks need to be filled while submerged in water to keep them cool, having done experiments showing how the rapid heating of the tank during filling is dangerous. They sold Vortex Springs within the past 10 years, and a large commercial scuba diving group owns it and probably runs the dive shop better, although I miss Connie and her husband who used to run it. I was helped a lot by the staff during this last visit, and I did slide down one of the stairs, and I was required to be checked out by them to make sure I was okay that day, which I actually appreciated. I was able to take hot showers there. I feel that the price of the services is excellent, and I can't wait to go back to Vortex Springs again. I hope to see you there the next time I dive at Vortex Springs or camp there.